Hey Stoic soul, tonight you step into the calm storm with us, a rare circle where comfort is not the goal, clarity is. You're here because somewhere in your life, hatred snakes in quietly, not just from enemies, but from the familiar, the close, the ones who smile. You feel it. Cold shoulders, sharper words, that strange tension clinging to the air. You know something's off, yet you second-guess your own senses. The Stoics taught us, external storms cannot touch the stillness within unless we open the door. So, breathe deep. Slow your pulse. Tonight, we expose not just their darkness, but your calm defiance. These are signs, not for paranoia, but for power, discipline, and boundary. Settle in, warrior. We're about to name the shadows. Their words dry up around you. Laughter dies down as soon as you walk in. The warmth you took for granted is replaced by glances like frosted glass. You sense the chill, not just in the temperature of their tone, but in something deeper, the silent verdict they've handed down in their mind. You're not paranoid. Even Seneca noticed, what silence says is sometimes louder than any accusation. It's as if you've become a sort of winter wizard, except your spell isn't to summon blizzards, but to accidentally turn office, happy, hour into a Scandinavian sauna with the heating off. Everyone together, but nobody willing to talk. The drop in conversation is so obvious, even your phone's weather app pops a notification. Warning, social frost advisory in effect. You stand there, attempting to defrost the mood with a well-placed joke or a hopeful anecdote. But even your nicest punchlines dissolve like snowflakes on warm skin, gone before they ever stick. The Stoics, grandmasters of chilling out emotionally, would have you notice this freeze without cursing the cold. Epictetus gently shrugs from the ancient ether. You can't control the temperature, only how many sweaters you wear. They'd ask you to consider, was the silence truly about you, or is the Arctic front just passing through? Sometimes people are distracted, tired, or too deep in thought about whether the vending machine's burrito is safe to eat after last week's incident. Still, silence is tricky. It's an unspoken no admittance sign, the kind you find on the inner door of every middle school cafeteria and every corporate brainstorming session managed by someone called Steve. You try to brush off the frost. I'm totally imagining this, right? But that only becomes another flake in the growing drift of self-doubt. For the Stoic, this is the moment to step back and observe the thoughts trying to build a snowman out of your mood. Marcus Aurelius would remind you, what stands in the way becomes the way, even if that thing happens to be the subarctic glare from Carol in accounting. You may notice your mind starting to race. If this silence were a game, it'd be Olympic-level figure skating, triple-toe loops of overthinking, followed by a gold medal-worthy spiral of, did I say something wrong? Meanwhile, your lizard brain is busy trying to recall your last 10 conversations. Was it the mayonnaise joke? The one about the stapler? Did they all get together and decide on an official freeze-out day? And you missed the memo because it was sent on Slack? And you have 2,942 unread Slack notifications? Here's where a touch of Stoic humor melts icy paranoia. Nobody's paying as much attention to you as you think. You are not, regrettably or fortunately, the main character of everyone's show. Most people are simply shivering through their own weather systems, distracted by the blizzards of their personal worries. That's both humbling and freeing. If silence is a cold front, it will pass, and you, meanwhile, may use it to notice how you habitually tie your self-worth to the latest climate in the room. Instead of chasing the receding warmth or anxiously checking the thermometer, you let them be as frozen or thawed as their moods allow. Because, let's face it, Cicero probably never stressed about being ignored at potlucks. And there's something quietly heroic about not demanding applause, not begging for sunshine, but simply waiting out the winter, knowing that storms pass. Awkward silences thaw, and your own value isn't determined by the temperature of other people's stares. So, the next time you enter a room and the atmosphere cuts 10 degrees, remember, the cold is a detail, not a destiny. Treat it like an oddly refreshing breeze, not a verdict. As you listen to your own breath in the chill, you become the warmest person present. The law of ice, after all, is only as powerful as your urge to fight it. The Stoics laugh quietly in the background, sipping invisible hot chocolate, knowing you're just weathering the weather, and maybe, accidentally, inventing a new dance craze. The social shiver, you notice it. Their eyes never meet yours, or when they do, they linger a second too long. Every encounter becomes theatre. Polite, yes, but under the surface, their eyes are swords, not windows. You sense judgment without jury, criticism without words. Every look plants a seed of unease. It's funny. Eyes were supposed to be the windows to the soul, not the heavily tinted windows of a shady SUV. Yet here you are, performing psychological parkour to dodge the laser-guided microaggressions of a stare that could defrost steak. The room might be filled with polite conversation, gentle smiles, and even the clinking of spoons on teacups. But in your peripheral vision, you spot it. The unwavering stare, masquerading as casual curiosity, but actually screaming, "I disapprove of your existential choices." You think, am I being X-rayed for flaws? Or is this just the third round of who wore anxiety best? What is it about the human eye that turns a perfectly nice Wednesday into a Shakespearean duel of glances? It's primal, really. Eyes with the original group chat, the kind where everything is left on red and the only emoji is judgment. A single raised brow can send your inner Stoic philosopher scrambling for his toga and a one-way ticket to the volcano at Pompeii. And let's talk about those polite looks. You know the ones, perfectly neutral, except for a hint of something that makes you itch as if someone's just thrown a philosophy textbook at your aura. There is aggression tucked neatly into those lashes. Maybe it's the way the gaze lingers, folding itself around the room like an uncomfortable sweater. Maybe it's the micro-widening of pupils, a dilation of disapproval straight from the school of, "I was just born with this face. Sorry." Modern psychological studies call this the silent snub. Stoics called it just another Tuesday in Rome. Marcus Aurelius probably had to deal with this when someone tried to stare him down at the ancient equivalent of the local cafe. Probably the public baths, except with more olive oil and fewer pumpkin spice lattes. How did he respond? Not by competing in the ancient sport of outglaring for glory. Marcus advocated reflection. Is the source of this person's aggression my problem, or theirs? Spoiler, it's almost always theirs. In the spirit of Stoic wisdom, we realize we cannot control the thoughts brewing behind another's blinking, judgmental curtain. We can only survey our own interior decorating. Are our mental couches too busy collecting the opinions of others? When eyes do finally meet yours, there's that universal, how long do I hold the gaze algorithm? Too short, and you seem weak. Too long, and you look like you just challenged someone to a duel. Blinking becomes a Morse code for, does this count as eye contact? Please respond. All the while, hidden in every fraction of a second, a message, maybe a compliment, maybe an insult, maybe just the shared human experience of accidentally making things awkward. But that's the thing. Most of the time, it's not about you. It's about the subtle theatre of insecurity, performed behind the shields of polite eyelids and good grooming. Modern psychology tells us that covert aggression in eye contact is often about unmet needs, stress, or unexpressed resentment. It's emotional luggage, wheeled around via unlucky retinas. What's a modern Stoic to do? Channel your inner Epictetus. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it. Your job isn't to return fire with your own soul-piercing gaze, but to gently chuckle inside. Maybe use the moment as your cue for a long, luxurious blink. You, after all, are not required to collect their baggage. You're just passing through the international terminal of human stares. So next time you sense the hidden aggression behind a well-manicured gaze, imagine the eyes as little actors, desperately improvising their roles, because no one gave them a good script. You can let the moment pass, knowing that the quality of your sleep tonight depends less on their silent judgments, and more on how lightly you let those swords bounce off your invisible Stoic shield. With any luck, by the time you drift off, you'll have become the wise old sage who knew the difference between a look that cuts and a life well lived, eyes closed in peace. They wrap venom in humor. Each joke aimed at you stings more than it amuses. The laughing crowd doesn't hear the twist beneath the punchline, but you do. It's not wit, it's a weapon, finely disguised. In a Stoic life, humor is healing. But for those filled with hatred, mockery is the mask for envy, the applause of the bitter. Picture yourself at a party. Someone cocks an eyebrow and says, "Oh, you're actually wearing that shirt. Brave." Laughter ripples. You chuckle along. But inside, you add one more brick to your defensive fortress. That's one more joke added to the pile. And if you're not careful, you'll end the night wearing a full suit of emotional armor, so thick even Marcus Aurelius would be impressed. Remember, don't be disturbed by the opinions of others. You might console yourself, while mentally calculating how many snarky comments it takes to bludgeon your self-esteem to death. In the Stoic world, humor and humility go hand in hand. Seneca would roast Lucilius about philosophy, but then turn the joke inwards, mocking himself with equal vigor. See, even wise men drop their scrolls on the way to virtue. But that's not what you're dealing with here. This is the caustic laughter that leaves acid burns on your confidence. The so-called jesters in your life aren't jesters at all. They're passive-aggressive archers, launching arrows wrapped in tinsel and giggles. The thing about these jokes is, they rarely arrive alone. No one ever gets stabbed just once in a Shakespearean drama, nor do you get only one harmless jab at the office lunch table. Mockery travels in packs. One day, it's your shoes. The next, it's your lunch treat. Is that quinoa? You must be trying really hard to impress your gut bacteria. Stoicism teaches us to treat external insults like the sound of distant thunder. Acknowledge the noise, but don't let it rattle your core. Still, the daily drizzle of mockery is less like one thunderclap and more like a leaky faucet. Drip, 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 until even the calmest philosopher wants to scream. The power of these jests isn't just in their content, it's their plausible deniability. Relax, it's just a joke, they say, as if that simple phrase is enough to patch up your dignity. You don't want to seem humorless, so you join in, but the laughter feels like sandpaper. Seneca said, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Yet every funny comment is doing push-ups in your memory, gaining strength for the next round. You wonder if anyone else notices the poison, or if you're the only one taste-testing despair hors d'oeuvres at every gathering. The Stoic path isn't about obliterating all negative emotions. It's about seeing them for what they are. Signals, not identities. You are not, despite all comic evidence, the sum of every mocking remark. Remember, the crowd's applause for cruelty says more about their character than it does about yours. If laughter ever feels like salt in a wound, that's your cue to defend your boundaries like Hadrian fortifying a wall against the barbarians, with grace, wit, and maybe a slight side-eye. In the end, true Stoic resilience means you wear every playful joke lightly. like a philosopher wearing an ill-fitting toga. You understand that humor is a mirror. If someone's reflection is warped, the joke's on them. And if you must endure 100 clever insults, you flip the script, smile, and remind yourself you've just collected 100 reminders that other people's bitterness is not your burden to carry. You suddenly become a ghost at your own table. Your words vanish in conversation. Your presence is met with blank stares or abrupt topic switches. You are present, yet erased, an absence wearing a body. This is not an absence of attention, it's intentional. Remember, as Epictetus warned, what they ignore is what threatens them most. Why does this happen? Possibly because you're the living embodiment of that awkward moment when Socrates asked, "How do you know if you never ask?" Maybe you remind them of a difficult truth, or, honestly, maybe they just hate your sweater. Whatever the reason, ghost mode is active. People act like they've muted you in real life, which would be a cool feature if your entire self-esteem wasn't running on Windows 98. Let's face it, being invisible in plain sight is a special type of existential karaoke. You're singing your song, and everyone else just changed the channel. That joke you made floated by without a hint of laughter, committing social Sudoku on impact. The insightful suggestion, heard by the void, appreciated by the dust mites, and one empathetic potted plant. Your friend group might as well be in training for a career in competitive ignoring. They should really get a trophy for that. The Golden Side-Eye Award, sponsored by Awkward Silences Inc. But here's the Stoic twist. Marcus Aurelius reminds us, you have power over your mind, not outside events. In Stoic sleep hypnosis, which is not quite as relaxing as you'd hope, you learn this is their circus, and you are emphatically not their monkey. Their silence doesn't define your worth. It exposes their own discomfort with truth, vulnerability, or yes, that sweater of yours. Their reactions are their problem, their invisible stress ball to squeeze until they pull a muscle in avoidance. As you float unnoticed, remember every emperor and every philosopher at some point has stood at a metaphorical Roman food court and had their comment about the olives completely ignored. Seneca probably got glossed over at toga parties. No one is immune. Invisibility is so universal that it's almost comforting, like the universe saying, "Congrats, you unlocked the most relatable achievement in the human experience." Much like a cat suddenly realizing it's alone in a room after everyone left, you now have choices. You can freak out and start running in circles, or, more stoically, you can make yourself comfortable, stretch out, turn the pillows of your mind, and nap in the sunlight of your own company. This moment is yours. If others don't see your value, perhaps they're busy counting grains of sand on their own emotional beaches. And what about that moment when you speak and someone else repeats your thought, only louder, and they get thunderous approval? Oh yes, the dreaded echo chamberlain, MVP of the ancient art of not listening. Epictetus would suggest you treat this with the serene amusement of a philosopher watching his students debate milliseconds after ignoring his lecture. Simply nod and know. Imitation is the most forgetful form of flattery. When you're the ghost, don't haunt yourself. Your worth is not determined by the cognitive recognition of the sleepwalking masses around you. If your message is true, it will endure, even if its first stop is the recycling bin of other people's filters. Smile softly. You are not invisible to yourself, and, in the end, not to wisdom either. Take a breath, grab your spiritual bedsheet, and haunt on, knowing some of the world's greatest thinkers started out as background noise at the party before they became the song everyone remembered. Misplaced information, missed messages, an appointment no one told you was cancelled. Patterns start to emerge. Too many accidents, too many missed chances, and somehow it always tilts in their favour. The Stoics called this indirect warfare, a sign that your presence threatens their imaginary peace. Now imagine standing at your desk, coffee in hand, discovering that the critical file you asked for has been sent to the wrong John. Again, as the confusion clouds above your head, Cheryl. From accounts offers a sympathetic shrug and a bagel she's already bitten. They swear it's a mix-up. The 5th this month. What are the odds? Marcus Aurelius would raise an eyebrow, but not his voice. He knew, as you're learning, that accidents become habits when someone quietly aspires to be the world champion of passive sabotage. The Stoics warned of quiet adversaries, those who prefer the chessboard to the boxing ring. Epictetus might say, if it walks like a duck and sabotages you like a duck, perhaps you ought to waddle elsewhere. These subtle underminers rely on plausible deniability, a message mysteriously unsent, the wrong date entered on the group calendar. That time your name vanished from the Zoom invite like Houdini himself was running tech support. Take a tranquil breath. Recognize these aren't clumsy stumbles, but tactical hesitations calculated to chip away at your competence without ever throwing a punch. Funny how your lunch always goes missing from the fridge, but only when you've labelled it clearly. Oops, must have been a mix-up. Honest mistake, says the grinning lunchtime thief, crumbs on their stoic-free smirk. Stoicism offers a different toolset than revenge. No elaborate counterpranks or angry confrontation. Instead, you wield awareness as your shield. You see the pattern, and like Seneca pondering the fate of a runaway toga, you don't take it personally. You note, you document, you keep receipts. Because even if justice isn't immediate, clarity is. There's a small art to surviving accidental saboteurs. First, come to terms with the comedy. Life has assigned you a sitcom-style nemesis, whose weapon of choice is oops. Next, sharpen your own reliability until it gleams like Epictetus's sandal in the sunlight. Triple-check your emails. Reply all with gentle, unshakable competence. Oh, I didn't see you there, they protest, waving behind their wall of misunderstandings. Smile with the serene menace of a bodhisattva assembling an audit trail. Sleep comes easier when you accept that some people play chess with missing pieces. You can't stop their moves, but you can predict the pattern. Shrug, much as the Stoics did when Rome was awash with intrigue and the grapevine thrummed with rumours thicker than olive oil. Let their games nudge you, not knock you over. The less reactive you become, the more their subtle sabotage starts to look like nothing more than interpretive dance, full of intent, signifying absolutely nothing. So as you drift off tonight, picture yourself not as a victim of these little dramas, but as their bemused observer. Like an ancient philosopher at a chaotic banquet, sip your imaginary wine, enjoy the faint background noise of accidental chaos, and remember, only you get to decide whether to join the dance or sit back, savor your meal, and watch with a knowing smile. In front of others, everything is fine. Smiles, gentle ribs, perhaps even compliments. But alone, criticism pours down without filter or fairness. The contrast is jarring. Sunshine for the crowd, storms for you in the shadows. True character shows when the crowd thins. Hatred always splits face from heart. There's a particular choreography to the social masquerade, and its signature move is the glittering deployment of public praise. If you've ever been in a meeting where your idea, just yesterday, roasted over lukewarm coffee in a shadowy office, is suddenly celebrated to the sound of feigned applause, you know this dance. The compliments come sugar-coated, buttery, and sweet. Marvelous work, they say, while secretly counting the seconds to the first lone moment when the gloves come off. It's as if your critics have signed up for a 2-for-1 acting class. They're performing for the room and rehearsing their jabs for you in private. Stoicism, meanwhile, sits skeptically by the punch bowl, nursing a lukewarm cranberry juice and raising one eyebrow at this carnival. Don't trust applause, Seneca mutters, especially not applause sandwiched between mysterious silences. The truly Stoic soul is unmoved by public praise and undestroyed by private critique. Why? Because neither is truly about you. Both are mirrors pointed, more often, at the speaker's hungry need for status or superiority. And in this twisted dance, their masks occasionally slip. Catch it. The smile that twitches, the compliment that sours midair. It's a performance where etiquette covers over all manner of emotional carnage. Management seminars teach praise in public, critique in private. This sounds compassionate. Realize, it's mostly about keeping the public mood undisturbed, not about repairing or growing the actual person involved. It's as if the most important thing is not your development, or even the truth, but the ambient temperature of the room. Don't rock the boat, whispers anxiety. Just keep everyone comfortable. You, meanwhile, endure hurricanes in solitude. But the Stoic observes this circus of swirling masks, and instead of playing along, chooses authenticity. Marcus Aurelius would ask, "What's my duty, right now, in this strange social charade?" The answer, stay rooted. Own your mistakes publicly. Don't wait for whispered hallways. Give genuine praise, not confetti of vague affirmation. Criticize, yes, but like a friend, patching a leaky canoe before anyone drowns. Not like a gremlin gleefully poking holes in the hull while the crowd's not watching. It's tempting to imagine we can separate our faces like pancakes on a platter. One for the public, shiny with syrup, and one for the kitchen, burned and bitter. The Stoics reject this culinary dualism. They suggest one face, sincere, imperfect, and impossible to compartmentalize. In practice, that means no sugarcoating for an audience, no poison dart critiques by moonlight. Integrity is a single, slightly weird dance move you do everywhere, whether the crowd is cheering or snoring. Imagine the next time you're praised in public. Instead of preening like a peacock in a rented tuxedo, you nod, grateful but grounded, knowing applause fades fast. If a critique arrives later, you listen, as if sorting through your laundry for spare change, instead of bracing for doom. And if you're the one with feedback to give, forego the mask entirely. Be clear, be kind, be honest. The people worth keeping in your circle will respect the strangely radical act of saying the same things in public as you would behind closed doors. Minus the dramatic lighting and tiny violin soundtrack. By practicing this, you sidestep the exhausting masquerade. Praise and critique lose their sharp teeth. They are tools, not traps. The Stoic, unmoved by tides of flattery or the undertow of secrecy, stands apart from the desperate contortions of those twisting their faces to fit the audience. Authenticity, as boring as it sometimes sounds, is the only move that never goes out of style on this dance floor. Suddenly, mutual friends start acting cautiously around you. Their tone shifts. Answers come clipped. Unseen narratives float in the background. You can sense it. Conversations have already happened. Your reputation quietly battered. The Stoic teaches, reputation means nothing, but the movement of your circle is a map. Follow it. Your daily group chat gets a little quieter. Someone who used to react to every meme with flame emojis now gives nothing but the thumbs up. Brunch invitations taper off. Oh, just a quiet breakfast with a few people next time for sure. The next time doesn't arrive. Little things are forgotten at first. A missed tag in a photo, not being looped into a spontaneous outing. For a moment, you frantically wonder if you've developed halitosis, perceptible over text. You search your memory logs. Did I say something? Fail to like a post? Did my last group selfie look too existential? The Stoics would shrug. It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our judgments about them. But let's be honest, unread group messages have ruined more sleep than Roman invasions ever did. In your mind, each maybe later is now an ominous sign, like Apollo sending you cryptic omens via push notification. And still, you try to be reasonable. They're probably just busy, you tell yourself. Though in your heart, you know. Our ancient philosophical ancestors sat through exiles and betrayals. You, meanwhile, face the chilly purgatory of people quietly muting your stories. Modern Stoicism whispers, let go of what you can't control. You cannot command the affections of the group thread. You cannot reverse those late-night venting sessions where your name circled the virtual table, passed around like a slightly bruised avocado. Perhaps, in the time you used to spend analyzing people's message cadence, you could finally take up watercolor painting, or learn Portuguese, or finally, unsubscribe from that ancient catfax email list. Progress through subtraction, Epictetus would say. And yet your shrinking circle offers a secret blessing. The art of letting go is the art of slimming down your expectations, replacing "why aren't they inviting me?" with "was I really enjoying their company? Or was I just avoiding silence?" Remember, Seneca partied hard in his youth, only to discover that real contentment isn't found in the dazzling, half-hearted energy of crowds, but in the deep stillness of a comfortable night in, possibly accompanied by too much herbal tea and the soft glow of a candle shaped like a mediocre Roman senator. As the circle becomes a crescent, you witness the real core. Maybe just you and one persistent weirdo who texts back at 2 a.m. with existential jokes. Plato had Socrates, Frodo had Sam. You might have Kyle from accounting. Kyle, who may not get your literary references, but will help you move your couch. So, stop squinting at the shifting algorithms of human attention. Stop obsessively translating their delayed texts like a dusty manuscript. In the Stoic tradition, treat lost connections as clouds passing before the sun. Unavoidable, impersonal, eventually drifting away. Use the calm that follows for something truer, deep rest, self-honesty, and perhaps the gentle rediscovery of what you actually want from other people versus what you used to need as proof of your place in the world. Small issues become sudden eruptions. Minor missteps trigger major outrage. Their anger is disproportionate, often simmering just beneath the surface, waiting for any excuse. You find yourself monitoring every move, tiptoeing around invisible tripwires. This isn't about what you did. It's about what they feel. Let's imagine for a moment that you've accidentally used the good mug, the one adorned with a faded motivational cat poster, because all other mugs are in the sink, locked in a ceramic traffic jam. Your hand barely touches the cabinet before you hear it, the shrill crackle of volcanic disapproval. Suddenly, you're on trial for Mugmageddon 2024. The air turns thick as soup, and you wish you could shrink, Alice in Wonderland style, straight into the teaspoon, just to avoid the blast radius. This isn't how reasonable adults respond to misplaced mugs, or crumbs on the counter, or minor mistakes. In a healthy relationship, a forgotten trash bag doesn't earn you a lecture, rivaling the fiery rhetoric of an ancient general. Stoics might say, we are disturbed not by events, but by the view we take of them. Clearly, some folks are equipping themselves with emotional magnifying glasses set to apocalypse, transforming manageable speed bumps into colossal, fire-breathing monsters. Now here's the comedic paradox. The person erupting may barely remember why they were mad the next day. But you're still checking the ground for landmines. Your nervous system's got its shoes laced, sprinting in circles. You start predicting weather patterns by the shifting tone of, "Good morning." When you witness these combustible reactions, remember, these explosions aren't proportionate, logical, or even particularly original. It's not about the mug or the shoes by the door, or that you dared to breathe with a decibel level equal to a sleeping hamster. It's a flare shot into the sky, signaling something deeper brewing below. Psychologists call this misattributed anger, emotions that take detours, looking for the nearest exit. In Stoic terms, these are passions, volatile, undisciplined energies hijacking the cockpit of reason. Epictetus said the real battle is within. Here, you're witnessing someone losing that battle spectacularly, dragging you in as an unwilling extra. Maybe next time, bring popcorn. Is this fair? Nope. Is this about you? Still, nope. Their overreactions are red flags that the relationship's emotional climate is powered by tectonic plates, not healthy communication. If simple slip-ups are greeted by thunderbolts, you're quietly conscripted into the role of weather forecaster, emotional negotiator, and expert apologist for crimes you're not even sure you committed. Sleep becomes an escape plan. Waking up feels like being handed a script for a play you didn't audition for. When you hear that outrage booming over nothing, treat it as a blinking neon sign. Something's off. Healthy connections don't feel like walking through a minefield while balancing dishes. If you notice you're rationing words, revising text messages 5 times, just to avoid a nuclear meltdown over emoji selection, it's time to ask, is this really about a mug? Or have you wandered into a circus where every day is a new high-wire act? Plot twist. In a wise, stable relationship, mistakes are just that. Mistakes. They may earn a chuckle or a mutual eye roll, not a Shakespearean monologue. Choose the life with laughter over lectures, mugs over missiles, and maybe, just maybe, invest in more mugs. But not for peacekeeping, just because you deserve a cup of tea unaccompanied by an emotional explosion. Everything turns transactional. Invitations are withheld, conversations are minimal. Warmth withholds itself behind a tight-lipped courtesy. They don't confront, they withdraw. Walls rise where welcome once lived. You chase connection, and in doing so, you lose your sovereignty. Stoicism urges, if a door closes, let it close. Passive barriers aren't the grand gestures of exile, more like a series of chilly breezes every time you reach for warmth. It's the way your texts are answered 3 days later with a haha yeah that sounds like it was composed by a committee of bored robots. It's the subtle untagging from photos, the polite but firm, "Oh, I'm just so busy these days," delivered with the enthusiasm of someone listing their dental appointments. No dramatic exits, no shout-outs, just doors that edge quietly shut, an inch at a time. You can sense it. You might even start running diagnostic checks on your personality. Did I talk too much about my sourdough starter? Was my third meme about Marcus Aurelius a step too far? The insecure mind moonwalks into paranoia, replaying every slightly awkward interaction as if you're solving an ancient murder mystery. But really, the Stoic urge is not to become the Sherlock Holmes of "why wasn't I invited?" It's to notice the passive boundaries and let them be just that. Boundaries, not battlefields. Epictetus would probably stare you down and say, Whatever is not under your control is not your concern. The curse of the modern social world is to interpret every silence as an indictment, every slow reply as a verdict. The Stoic cure? Don't inflict extra suffering by dragging your self-worth over every passive wall. If a fence crops up where an open field used to be, admire the carpentry, smile, and take your philosophical self elsewhere. Stoicism doesn't mean you close yourself off or become a statue. As fun as standing still and unnerving joggers in the park might sound. Instead, it's about keeping your joy and dignity independent of other people's unpredictable zoning decisions. When people build their emotional walls, don't volunteer to be the scaffolding. Don't throw yourself against the stone, asking to be let in. That's not virtue. That's masochism in a toga. You are permitted, nay, encouraged, to treat your own time and attention as valuable. You can send cordial replies, wish them well, and leave the drawbridge up on your own emotional castle without guilt. You might even channel your inner emperor and bless their barriers. May your fortress be cozy, your moat full of ducks, and your group chats perpetually organized. Then, turn inward to where your peace already lives. In a world forever shadowboxing with ghosted texts and unreturned calls, your serenity is found not in chasing every closed invitation, but in mastering the lightness of letting go. Passive barriers hurt, but only if you keep pounding at them like a dedicated door-to-door philosopher. Instead, recall the greatest Stoic mic drop. The obstacle is the way. Sometimes the wall is not the obstacle. The real liberation is the moment you stop trying to climb it. The deepest cut comes when they expose your story, mock your pain, or weaponize your past mistakes. Vulnerabilities you shared in trust become blades sharpened against you. This is the darkest sign, hatred that studies you, learns you, and turns your truth into a battlefield. Marcus Aurelius believed, no man harms you more than he does himself. Where you are wounded, they are truly weak. Think of it this way. You open up about a humiliating experience. Maybe a disastrous birthday party. Or that time you wore socks with sandals in public because you thought it was a trend. Your secret shame, revealed in a moment of trust, suddenly becomes their favorite weapon. They bring it up at the worst moment, at dinner, at parties, during peaceful walks that suddenly take a detour into psychological warfare. If there was an Olympic event for passive-aggressive references to your weaknesses, these folks would have gold medals, custom podiums, and a stand-up routine featuring nothing but your most awkward moments. But why? Why do people do this? Stoic philosophy, backed up by modern psychology, tells us the person wielding your vulnerability does so not from a place of real strength, but from a desperate scramble for control. They see your openness not as something to respect, but something that makes them powerful. In this way, your scars become mirrors. They reveal more about the attacker than about you. A person obsessed with your weaknesses is shouting silently about their own inner fragility. You're a walking, talking reminder of their inability to face their own fallibility. So they turn your honesty into a dart, hoping it'll stick somewhere soft. Spoiler. It only reveals how much sharpness they silently point at themselves. And notice, when someone tries to mirror your worst moments, it's rarely subtle. First comes the side eye, then a sly grin as they repeat your words, but with just enough of a twist to make the room snicker. Suddenly you're reliving moments you thought you'd grown from, except now you're on display, as though you're starring in an embarrassing rerun. These are psychological magicians, pulling your flaws out of thin air and ta-da, turning them into a spectacle. The Stoics would just call this madness dressed as cleverness. But here's where the plot twist arrives. The more they try to turn your past into a punchline, the more you realize you have outgrown not just those awkward moments, but the need for their approval. Because here's a secret: your honesty is strength, not ammunition. Their attempt to use your sincerity as a liability proves only their bankruptcy of character. Your old mistakes are not stones to be thrown. They're stepping stones, awkward and lumpy, but the path you walk on anyway. If only they'd leave their lawn chairs of bitterness and try moving along themselves. There's almost something comical, tragically so, in how hard a person will work to collect your insecurities, like some kind of emotional Pokemon collector. Ah, this is just the right moment for the crybaby in 5th grade card. They save these tidbits, waiting for just the right day to unleash them. But really, who's more exposed? The person who risks honesty, or the one who spends life keeping a detailed inventory of someone else's worst days? When you sense this happening, do not give chase. Stoicism isn't about winning the battle of wits, nor is it about ignoring pain. It's about refusing to hand over your inner peace to someone desperate for drama. You might picture your boundaries as an ancient Roman fort, stone walls, guarded gates, and a strict no jerks allowed policy. Let them wave their little flags of mockery outside the gates. Inside your fort, your true self can actually take a nap. So breathe. Gather your composure like a cloak. You are not paranoid for noticing these signs. You are awake. The Stoic way is not to beg for acceptance, nor retreat into bitterness. You see hatred, escort it to the door, and keep your inner doors firm. Every sign you notice is not just their confession, but your awakening. You witness not because you are weak, but because you choose not to respond with equal malice. Stand in your clear, cold dignity. The icy winds of others cannot freeze the fire inside you. The world will never lack for bitterness. It is the rare soul who chooses discipline instead of drama, calm instead of competition. Tonight, honor yourself for seeing clearly. Remember, your peace is not for sale. Your boundaries not up for debate. Walk quietly. Walk free. So breathe. Gather your composure like a cloak. You are not paranoid for noticing these signs. You are awake. The Stoic way is not to beg for acceptance, nor retreat into bitterness. You see hatred, escort it to the door, and keep your inner doors firm. Every sign you notice is not just their confession, but your awakening. You witness not because you are weak, but because you choose not to respond with equal malice. Stand in your clear, cold dignity. The icy winds of others cannot freeze the fire inside you. The world will never lack for bitterness. It is the rare soul who chooses discipline instead of drama, calm instead of competition. Tonight, honor yourself for seeing clearly. Remember, your peace is not for sale. Your boundaries not up for debate. Walk quietly. Walk free.